Impact Interview is sponsored by the Pocono Mountains, where small-town charm meets big adventures. Book your trip today by visiting PoconoMountains.com.
Well, welcome back to Nittany Game Week. Our interview today is with Jed Hughes, Vice Chairman of Global Sector Leader in Sport at Korn Ferry. But before becoming a global leader, listen to this coaching career. Made stops with Michigan, UCLA, Stanford, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Minnesota Vikings, all stops that involved coaching for Hall of Fame coaches. And I like this part here, Jed. While doing all that, you found time to get a master's degree from Stanford and a PhD from Michigan. Thanks so much for joining us on the program. We're anxious to talk to you.
My pleasure, and Happy New Year to you and your guests.
Yes, thank you, and Happy New Year to you as well. So look, let's start with one of the more fascinating aspects of what you've done, and that's helping teams develop the assessments to evaluate players. And of course, everybody's interested in the combine and the strength and the speed, but talk about the importance of the off-the-field interviews for the players and the evaluation process for the NFL teams.
Well, I think, first of all, the teams spend an inordinate amount of time on evaluating the player. It's the most efficient professional evaluation of athletes in any sport. And the mental part of it is probably the least utilized because the interviews are short. They're 15 minutes, the horn buzzes, and you go to the next interview. And if you really want to interview somebody, you got to get them at a different time or you got to bring them into your organization. So doing assessments, when we work with the Green Bay Packers, Ron Wolf is the GM, and we came up with 3 attributes. Someone that was had an exceptional work ethic, that was passionate about football and could make a difference. And we would use an assessment tool to evaluate each player, and then we compare those evaluations. And what we determined was someone that was really high on sociability and low on conscious restraint. Sociability meaning somebody that really liked to show themselves off, and conscious restraint, low side, meaning somebody who didn't think through the consequences of their behavior. That would raise a red flag. And you'd want to make sure you did your homework in terms of references, people you talk to on the campus around about the athletes. And again, it varies. If you're a high round draft pick, the incremental value versus aggravation factor is a little bit different than if you're a mid round, or low round, or a free agent. So those things vary a little bit based on who the person is that you're evaluating, Todd.
I've been involved in seeing the budget and numbers side of where college football is headed right now. So this seems to be a time of unprecedented change as relates to the business model of college sports. What has surprised you the most, and where do you see this plane landing, so to speak?
Well, first of all, I don't think the big plane's going to land in State College. The airport's too small.
We changed that, unfortunately.
All right. Well, you don't have to go to Harrisburg anymore.
No.
That's good. That's good. That's a good thing here. But what's happened, first of all, the media got involved. So if you look at what's happened with the SEC, ESPN's gotten in control of that. And if you look at what's happened with the Big Ten, Fox on the West Coast got control of what owns the rights. I don't know how many people know this, but the Big Ten does not own the rights to their network. They're owned by Fox. So Kevin Warren being the commissioner, he was pushed into looking at ways to expand revenue. And with the media deals not set to expire until 35, he went back out and pushed the edge of the envelope and was able to get deals done with CBS and NBC. So you asked that question. So the amount of money that's coming to schools is unprecedented. Big Ten, $75 million, $80 million a year they're going to be getting starting next year. And their national exposure, they're like professional football. They're on in the afternoon, noontime, 3:30, and at night. And then you've got coaches' salaries. And then you've got NIL. So you talk about the business model. That's happened because the NCAA has lost control. There's nobody really running the ship. And what's going to end up happening, in my opinion, is going to be 2 mega conferences.
Hey, Jed, as a Michigan grad who coached at both Stanford and UCLA, how strange is next season going to be seeing UCLA and Michigan both in the Big Ten and Stanford in the ACC?
I think, first of all, let's look at the student athlete. That's the person that's going to be affected the most by the change in terms of how they're going to have to travel. Football is easy. compared to the other sports on how they're going to be able to schedule them. So if they have to make a trip to the East Coast or West Coast, they're going to have time to be able to refresh. I don't know how school is going to work. I think it's going to be really difficult. The fact that the Pac-12 has broken up the way it has, I mean, it's unfortunate that TV revenue didn't happen the way it should, but disappointed, Tom, to be frank, to your question. It's hard to see, understand that we have to move forward, and it's part of life. Change, as Chuck Noll used to say, the only thing life ain't constant is change.
Well, really interesting feedback from Jed Hughes about a lot of the process. We're going to step aside for the TV show to take a break. We will continue our interview. So if you want to see the conversation with Jed, make sure you go to NittanyGameWeek.com for the rest of the interview, along with other web exclusive content.